At 49, Leonardo DiCaprio finally addressed the question fans have asked for more than 25 years. What really happened between him and Kate Winslet? They'd been paired together since Titanic, their chemistry so natural it blurred the line between acting and reality. For years, both insisted it was friendship, yet every public moment, the glances, the laughter, the tears on red carpets, told a different story. And when Leonardo finally spoke about her recently, he didn't use the usual deflection or humor. His tone changed. He said, "There's seeps a level of trust between us I seeps never had with anyone else." That single line reignited every rumor, because it wasn't a denial, and it wasn't an admission. It was something in between. For the first time, Leonardo seemed to confirm what audiences had always felt, that what began on that icy film set all those years ago wasn't just acting. It was the kind of connection that never left either of them. In 1997, two young actors stood on the edge of something they couldn't yet see coming. Leonardo DiCaprio was 22, already recognized for his talent, but still years away from superstardom. Kate Winslet was barely 21, eager, fearless, and determined to prove she belonged among the best. They met on the set of Titanic, a film that would not only define their careers, but change the way an entire generation saw love. From the very first rehearsal, something between them clicked. James Cameron later described their chemistry as instant. Kate once admitted she'd been nervous to meet Leonardo, expecting someone distant or detached, but within minutes she realized he was playful, kind, and completely unguarded. They spent hours between takes, joking, teasing, and building a friendship that quickly became the emotional anchor of the film. On screen, they were Jack and Rose, young, hopeful, unstoppable. Off-screen, they were two people navigating pressure they couldn't yet comprehend. The set was grueling, the days long, and the cold real. During the infamous water scenes, Kate nearly froze several times, yet she remembered Leonardo staying close, making her laugh to keep her calm. Later she'd say, "He was my strength when I was exhausted." For Leo, it was the same. Kate's determination set the tone. She refused to complain, and that quiet resilience became something he admired for the rest of his life. What they built in those months wasn't just chemistry for a movie. It was trust, the kind that survives chaos. As the ship sank on screen, the bond between them deepened behind the camera. Crew members noticed it. Cameramen whispered about how easily their affection spilled into real moments, how their laughter between takes didn't feel like acting anymore. When Titanic finally premiered, both were overwhelmed. The movie became the most successful film in history at the time, and suddenly, two private young actors became the faces of a global love story. The world didn't separate Jack and Rose from Leonardo and Kate. Everywhere they went, people asked if they were together. Every interview circled back to the same question: was it real? Neither denied the connection, but neither confirmed it either. Instead, they deflected with warmth. Kate would smile and say, "We're just the best of friends." Leonardo would nod and echo her words. But their body language often betrayed them. A hand on her shoulder, a shared glance that lingered a little too long. They had become a symbol of timeless romance, even as they privately held on to something quieter and more complicated. Both were young and ambitious, aware that fame could distort anything it touched. Yet even then, they seemed to understand they'd experienced something rare. In later years, Kate would admit that Titanic bonded them for life. Leonardo said it even more simply: "We went through something huge together, we'll always have that." For millions of fans, it wasn't just the story of a film. It was the beginning of a mystery that would last decades. Because from that moment on, Leonardo and Kate stopped being co-stars. They became a question, one that even now, neither of them has fully answered. When the whirlwind of Titanic finally settled, most young actors would have drifted apart. Fame tends to create distance, not closeness, but for Leonardo DiCaprio and Kate Winslet, the opposite happened. The film had made them global stars overnight, and with that came pressure neither had faced before. The press, the tabloids, the constant comparisons. In that chaos, they became each other's escape. They didn't need to talk every day or see each other often. When they did, they picked up exactly where they'd left off. Kate once said, "We never needed to explain anything, we just understood each other." It was that quiet understanding that became their foundation. They weren't competing or pretending. They were two people who'd shared the same storm and come out the other side knowing the other had seen it too. Through the early 2000s, as both careers evolved, their bond deepened. When Leonardo was criticized for his fame and relationships, Kate defended him publicly, saying, "People have no idea what a kind, loyal person he really is." When Kate struggled through the glare of attention on her own personal life, Leo was the one who called to check on her. He told one interviewer, "I've known Kate through everything. She's one of the most genuine people I've ever met." It wasn't about constant contact or public gestures. It was about trust. They shared private jokes, small phone calls that lasted hours, and an unspoken rule: no matter where life took them, they'd always look out for each other. When Kate got married, Leo sent his love and flowers. When Leo was nominated for an Oscar, Kate cheered from the front row. Over time, they became more like family than friends. Still, the world didn't stop asking questions. Fans saw the way they laughed together on red carpets, the comfort in their touch, the ease that never faded. No matter how many times they said just friends, no one fully believed it. Even directors who worked with them noticed. Sam Mendes, who later directed them both, said, "Their connection is like a shorthand most actors never find." That shorthand kept them steady in a world built on noise. Kate once said she trusted Leonardo with her life, and he said, "She was the person who knows me best." Those weren't casual remarks. They were small windows into a bond that had quietly outlasted 2 decades of fame, marriages, losses, and comebacks. Each time they reunited publicly, the speculation would begin again. But for them it was simple. They didn't owe anyone an explanation. They knew what they had. And while every rumor faded with time, the affection between them didn't. By the mid-2000s, they were living in separate worlds, different countries, different careers, but the connection remained unbroken. Kate once said that even when they went years without seeing each other, it feels like no time has passed. That was the truth behind their story, permanence without definition. To the outside world, it was a mystery. To them, it was just life. And somewhere between friendship and something deeper, Leonardo and Kate learned what very few ever do, that some bonds don't fade, even when everything else does. As the years unfolded, Leonardo DiCaprio and Kate Winslet began living very different lives. Their careers soared in separate directions, and the bond that had started on a film set quietly became something they protected from the world. But no matter how far apart their paths seemed, there was always a thread that tied them back together, a kind of emotional compass that neither of them ever lost. Kate married young, became a mother, and built a career that balanced blockbuster fame with deeply human roles. Leonardo took the opposite path, choosing solitude, travel, and the relentless pursuit of artistic perfection. He was the face of modern Hollywood, powerful, private, and endlessly pursued. Yet in interviews, whenever Kate's name surfaced, his expression softened. He'd describe her as "my best friend," or "the person who's always been there." Those were simple words, but to those who'd watched them for decades, they carried the weight of something more enduring than any romance. Life tested both of them in different ways. Kate endured public divorces, personal loss, and the exhaustion of constant scrutiny. Leonardo dealt with the pressures of fame, rumors that never stopped, and the difficulty of knowing who to trust. Through it all, their friendship became a refuge. They didn't talk about it much, but their loyalty was visible in small ways. A look, a laugh, a quiet reassurance, at an award show that said, "I'm still here." When they reunited in 2008 to film Revolutionary Road, it was more than just another project. The story of a couple struggling to hold their marriage together felt hauntingly familiar, even to them. Directed by Kate's then-husband, Sam Mendes, the film demanded emotional exposure from both. Kate later admitted that working with Leonardo again felt safe, but almost too real. The scenes were painful, not because they were acting, but because they were confronting emotions that had always lived between them: love, frustration, loss, and the question of what might have been. Leonardo described it differently. He said that acting opposite Kate after all those years felt like coming full circle. He didn't need to explain what he meant. Viewers could see it: the comfort, the history, the understanding that had never faded. Mendes himself said, "They have a connection you can't direct. It's just there." After the film, they went their separate ways again, but their bond seemed even stronger. In later interviews, Kate called Leo her closest friend in the world. He called her the constant in a world that changes too fast. They were both in their 30s by then, wiser, scarred, and grounded. They had seen enough of life to know that some relationships survive because they were never forced into definition. Their story had shifted from youthful excitement to quiet endurance. What started as chemistry on a film set had become a kind of lifelong partnership, not in romance but in spirit. They were no longer just Jack and Rose. They were two people who had grown up together under a spotlight and somehow stayed whole. By the time Titanic marked its 20th anniversary, both of them knew what the film and each other had truly given them: permanence. As Leonardo once said, "I settle always be grateful for Kate. She changed my life." And that was the truth behind the mystery. The world saw nostalgia. They saw something far more personal. Two lives that had gone their own way, yet still found their way back to each other. 2 decades after Titanic, the questions hadn't stopped. No matter how much time passed, every interviewer, every reunion, and every award show brought the same curiosity: what really existed between Leonardo DiCaprio and Kate Winslet. For years, both had smiled their way through the speculation. They didn't deny it, but they didn't confirm it either. It was their silent agreement to let the world keep wondering. Then, little by little, that silence began to shift. In 2008, while promoting Revolutionary Road, Leonardo spoke more openly about their bond than he ever had before. He said, "She's my closest friend in the world." It wasn't a throwaway line. He repeated it in several interviews, describing their relationship as a brother-sister thing, pure trust. For the first time, he acknowledged that what they shared wasn't just professional respect or nostalgic friendship. It was a partnership built on something few people in Hollywood ever find: safety. Kate echoed that same truth, but in her own unmistakable way. At the Golden Globes that year, she stood on stage, tears in her eyes, holding the award she just won for Revolutionary Road. Looking across the room, she said, "Leo, I'm so happy I can stand here and tell you I love you with all my heart. I really do." The crowd erupted, the cameras flashed, and Leonardo smiled, a quiet, knowing smile that said more than any words could. Tabloids went wild, calling it a confession. But when asked later, Kate clarified what she meant. It's not romantic love, it's real, unconditional love between two people who've been through a lot together. That statement didn't close the story, it deepened it. Because unconditional meant something bigger than friendship. It meant devotion, loyalty, and a kind of lifelong bond that doesn't fade when the spotlight does. Years later, their words continued to mirror one another. Leonardo told reporters, "We've always had each other's backs. I know I can call her about anything." Kate said in Glamour UK in 2017, "It feels the same now as it did then. We've been through so much, and it's never changed." There was an ease to the way they spoke about each other, as though they both knew the world was listening but didn't mind anymore. The speculation had become part of their history, and neither felt the need to correct it. Then came the Oscars in 2016. Leonardo finally won after years of nominations, and as his name was announced, cameras caught Kate wiping her eyes. Later she said, "I couldn't stop crying when he won. I just kept thinking, it's my friend. My friend has done it." When Leonardo was asked about her reaction, he smiled and said, "She's still the same Kate I met 22 years ago." Those weren't just compliments. They were glimpses into something few friendships ever reach, a level of love that no rumor could exaggerate. And as fans revisited the photos, the old footage, the memories stretching back to 1997, they realized what Leonardo had finally done. He hadn't confessed to a romance, he'd confirmed something deeper. That what began between two young actors on the deck of a sinking ship had never truly gone away. It simply changed shape, from chemistry to friendship to a lifelong connection that neither time nor fame could touch. More than 25 years after Titanic, Leonardo DiCaprio and Kate Winslet remain one of Hollywood's most enduring mysteries. They never dated, never confirmed a romance, and never fed the endless speculation that surrounded them, yet the fascination never faded, because what people saw between them wasn't performance, it was connection. Audiences have watched countless screen partnerships come and go, but something about Leonardo and Kate always felt different. They weren't a marketing myth or a nostalgic fantasy. They were proof that real emotion can exist within a world built on illusion. Every reunion, every shared smile, reignited the same question, not because people wanted gossip, but because they wanted to believe that kind of bond was possible. Their story continues to live in moments, that long embrace at the 2016 Oscars, the shared glances at anniversary interviews, the way their words about each other never change. They speak as if time has no hold on them. Kate once said, "We've grown up together in so many ways." Leonardo in turn called her family. Those are not phrases chosen for cameras. They're acknowledgments of history, of two people who met before they were legends and carried each other through everything that came after. Fans respond not to scandal, but to sincerity. In an industry often defined by fleeting partnerships, Leonardo and Kate have quietly built something that defies explanation. They've aged in parallel, supported each other through triumph and heartbreak, and reminded audiences that loyalty still exists. Every appearance together is met with the same reaction, a mixture of nostalgia, warmth, and wonder. It's rare to watch a relationship evolve in real time over decades. Rarer still when it's untouched by bitterness or distance. What people feel when they see them isn't fantasy, it's recognition. The idea that two souls can meet young, walk separate roads, and still share an unspoken understanding years later. That's what their connection represents. It isn't about romance, it's about belonging. Even now, when Leonardo speaks of gratitude or Kate speaks of trust, they circle back to the same truth they discovered long ago, that not every love story needs a declaration to be real. Some live quietly, in gestures, in loyalty, in the kind of affection that never seeks attention. Their friendship began as a story told on film, but what survived belongs entirely to them. And in the eyes of millions who grew up believing in Jack and Rose, it remains the rarest kind of Hollywood story, one that never needed rewriting. After all the years, Leonardo DiCaprio finally confirmed what fans had always sensed, that his connection with Kate Winslet was never just a memory from Titanic. It was something that outlived the movie, the fame, and the endless speculation. What began as two young actors learning to trust each other became one of the most genuine relationships Hollywood has ever seen. They never needed to define it, they never tried to explain it. Their loyalty spoke for itself, through decades of friendship, through shared milestones, through quiet moments that cameras happened to catch. When Leonardo finally called her his closest friend, and Kate described him as family, it wasn't just sentiment. It was the final piece of a story that had started long before either of them realized how powerful it would become. In a world that celebrates fleeting connections, theirs endures, steady, unshaken, and still deeply human. The truth is simple: some relationships never fade, they just evolve. For millions who once believed in Jack and Rose, that truth feels timeless. For more emotional stories, check out this video.